like TV.
It was nice to meet you. We're both newsmen, two newsmen sitting up here. I'm just going to ask him a few questions. As you mentioned, you're a board member of the IPI, International Press Institute, and it has media representatives from more than 120 countries. And while I was doing a little reading about it, and the organization is dedicated to the furtherance and safekeeping of freedom of the press. So with your experience, what is the status of freedom of the press in the world today? Are things getting better, worse, or kind of staying the same?
Thank you, Jerry. Nice meeting you here. I have prepared my answers because I got his questions in advance. So allow me what I tell you through my prepared answer, if you don't mind. Well, the state of press freedom in the world is very complicated. As you know, there are still some countries where the freedom of the press is not allowed or heavily restricted. For example, China, the communist China, censors every single news item, even now, by the Central Party propaganda authorities. And Cuba, Venezuela, Zimbabwe, Vietnam, and even Russia, let alone North Korea. These countries impose heavy restrictions on the press media by laws or for obvious political reasons. On the other hand, in Western democratic world and democratized former Soviet satellite countries, new legislations to curb the free press became controversial and are under IPI's scrutiny and protests. Therefore, it is not a matter of simply saying the press freedom in the world is growing or declining. It is an ever-continuing matter of strenuous efforts or fights by the journalists themselves in each country, as well as by such international press organizations as IPI to keep it free from governments and big money.
Okay, so it's really a complex question and answer, really. It's virtually impossible to answer directly. Well, I don't want you to have to replicate anything, but why did you become a newsman, and was it difficult?
Well, this is a good question for me. From my boyhood, I did not like to see anybody doing wrong. In my college days in late 1950s, I was angry of the then Liberal Party government revision of the Constitution to abolish the two-term restriction for presidency to pave the way for the then President Syngman Rhee. And in addition to the corruptions in every sector of our society then, the Syngman Rhee government manipulated their elections for himself and his vice president in 1960. And that made me join the student demonstrations against the regime in April that year. And around the time of my senior year of Seoul National University, I took pain in changing my objective of life from diplomatic service to journalism. I thought it as my mission to devote myself to democracy and justice for my poor country. Thanks to the April Student Revolution, Syngman Rhee regime was toppled down, and serious social disorder followed day after day and month after month under the weak democratic leadership of the then Prime Minister John M. Chung. And so, I volunteered to go to Korean Marine Corps Officers Candidate School to complete my military duty, which was compulsory. Upon completing my military duty in the Korean Marine Corps for over 6 years, I took the exam to become a journalist. This is a short story of how and why the journalistic career came into my life.
Okay. Obviously, he's a man of great ideals. That's impressive. What would you recommend that young people today go into journalism?
I am sure that the journalistic career is a very meaningful life for young generation too. Of course, it is not easy to become a news reporter in this country these days. It is really competitive today. As you may know, you have to pass the tough exam and to win over the severe competition. For those who want to build his journalistic career, I would like to recommend the followings. 1. Contemplation of his or her character. In other words, you reflect yourself in the mirror of your mind if you have a fighting spirit, to seek something new, something wrong, etc., and or to transform the society through your efforts. 2. Determination for hard work with no fear to compete and alertness to your duty. 3. Writing and storytelling capability as well as questioning skills. Journalism, I think, will go forever unless the day-to-day life of the human being dies out. I will welcome you to become journalists.
Okay. In the United States, many commentators are very concerned about the status of journalism. They're afraid journalism is losing its objectivity, that it's becoming more and more entertainment-oriented. Is that a big problem, and is that happening in the Asian media too?
This is a very difficult question. The objectivity issue has had a long, long history. Probably it might have started from the beginning. As the society in the world have been diversified in every field along with remarkable progresses, the argument of objective reporting has varied accordingly. Over the same news article, one may say it is a good objective report, while the other is opposed to it, saying it is a biased subjective one, according to the reader's or the viewer's viewpoint, or his or her ideology, and so forth. Instead of the issue of objectivity or subjectivity, the balanced reporting was considered more important or more critical now.
Okay. Obviously, globalization is important today. It's going on throughout the world. English is a global language. You talked about cultural identity today in your speech. Is it possible that globalization could be bad for the world if Korea loses its traditions? Perhaps your language could die in 100 years. I don't know. Is that a danger? Does that worry you?
Yes, I mentioned about the importance of personal identity and cultural identity. The reason behind my remarks seems to me quite obvious. Since we see how difficult, even how impossible it is, even the European Union to be united as one political entity, as the French founder of EU pictured in his grand vision. The globalization in true sense will be far, far from realization. Every political leader in each country seeks his or her national interest, not only in his or her international relations, but in many international organizations. Even in cultural field, many experts talk about glocalization, that is, globalization through localization. In other words, cultural globalization can be achieved through blooming and mutual understanding of respective culture of each country. Your question about English. I know and I am sure that English is mostly recognized as an international, even common language today. Therefore, learning English is too important for all of us to mention about it anymore. Self-claimed universal language, Esperanto, could not replace English, as some European visionaries tried in the 19th century and afterwards. I don't think, however, the status of English as a recognized international language will destroy the use of other languages like Korean. In this case also, I think glocalization can and will be applied to be coexistent. Above all, what I wanted to advise the student in my remarks was never to become a vagabond, cultural, mental, and or even physical, when they go abroad to seek their goals. What identity they would like to choose or develop is up to them. I'm not asking them to stick to everything Korean only.
Okay, good. A few minutes ago you mentioned China. Do you think they will continue to make improvements in human rights and freedom of the press and freedom of the speech?
I have many friends, journalistic friends in China. They are totally controlled, both visibly and invisibly. It will be absurd to expect the ruling Chinese Communist Party and its government to ease any restrictions on such basic human rights as the freedom of expression, the press freedom, and religious freedom. At this moment, aren't we seeing how the Chinese rulers treat the Nobel Peace Laureate Liu Xiaobo, his family, and his compatriots? And we watched the joint television news conference by US President Obama and his Chinese counterpart Hu at the White House nearly 10 days ago. When Mr. Hu was asked about the human rights in his country, he replied blatantly, quote, "I thought the question was towards the President Obama," unquote.
Okay. Another sensitive issue here, there a little bit. Do you expect reunification with North Korea someday? And if that happened, would there be freedom of speech, freedom of the press? Would there be democracy for the whole peninsula?
If we are reunited with the North Korean communist regime and North Korean people under the democratic principle, under our own free system, of course, they will enjoy the press freedom and other basic human rights as we do now. But at this moment, there is no possibility at all, no possibility to expect the North Korean regime even to ease a single article of their own penal code to relieve their people from the hardships. And as for the unification is concerned, I believe that only the German case would be a feasible option. That is, merger of North Korea into our democratic republic in the South by economic power.
Okay. I just have one little question that I didn't tell you in advance, but it's pretty easy, I think. Did we almost go to war with North Korea a month and a half ago? When I say we, because the United States obviously was involved too, and we're allies. Did we almost go to war?
Well, as a retired Marine Corps officer, you know, those young Marines are defending the Yeonpyeong Island even at this moment. And at the time of North Korean artillery attack, without any provocation on our part, I was very angry not only against the North Korean regime who bombarded their artillery against the innocent people in the Yeonpyeong Island, but also against our own military and government not to take a strong anti-North Korean measure at the time. Somebody were worried about the outbreak of another war on the Korean Peninsula. My thought at the time and now was and is that North Korean regime is not capable of breaking out any kind of all-out war because they are so poor. Even the North Korean soldiers, we could see, do not wear proper boots in the cold winter times. So if we did take a very strong measure against the North Koreans at the time, allied with the American support, I think we could retaliate the North Korean artillery not to think of any other attempt to do it again.
Okay, good. My next question is pretty complex, and I hope I understand it right. You founded the YNT Cable News, but in what, 1993, I believe, and in 2003, the Korean government made some type of law that brought Yonhap in under its, or at least it made it a branch or tied to the government. With that in mind, if that's correct, I believe it is, do you see it as a conflict of interest? You got the press essentially working for the government.
I personally was saddened to have this question before me. When I knew nearly 8 years ago, after my retirement from Yonhap, that my junior colleagues prepared such a unique law illustrating the Bernama News Agency law in Malaysia and the government subsidy for AFP in France. I was much opposed to such a proposal to the National Assembly. Around that time, Yonhap's financial situation was in deep trouble. Therefore, the people in charge at Yonhap invented a copy case of Malaysia's Bernama and AFP's receipt of government budgetary subsidy in France. I am sorry that I cannot answer your question fully and honestly because I served my beloved Yonhap as president publisher for 6 years, and my juniors would watch me what I would say even before you today.
Okay. Sir, they're cutting us off. It's time's out, but it was an honor speaking to you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Questions?
Yeah.
Questions for the students? 자, 지금부터 그러면 먼저 질문 있으신 학생들부터 먼저 질문을 받도록 하겠습니다.
Hi, my name is Cha Kim, and I'm a first grade student currently at Busan International High School. And I have actually a questions to you guys, to both of you guys, if you don't mind. All right. Okay. So it's just my personal curiosity, but I know that you guys been a reporter or newsman for a long time. I know you've delivered a lot of news to the public, but which one lasted in your memory? Which one is the most memorable one? Yeah.
Which one? Was what?
Yeah. Which news that you delivered it lasts in your memory long?
I may have cut this. Oh, there we go. Well, if you're talking about a news story that I personally worked on, this sounds bizarre, but I worked on a series of stories involving nuclear bombs of all things and dual-purpose technology and how you can ignite them with neutron pulse generators, which are used on oil wells. And that sounds very complex, and it was, but it was very fascinating. I was dealing with atomic bombs. That says enough. And you?
Well, I have several scoops in my news covering career, but one significant one was that an exclusive interview with the then United States President Jimmy Carter at the White House Oval Office. I was fortunately the first Korean correspondent in Washington, D.C. who was given such an occasion. You know, an exclusive interview with the President of the United States. President of the United States at that time was called the World President. So this is really, really difficult to have such an occasion. And of course, as some of you may read, the history book about the American President Carter's plan to withdraw American troops out of South Korea in late 1970s. And I asked several questions to the president, and he was in a very difficult position to change his earlier announcement to withdraw American forces from South Korea. So his answer was quite vague, but I could read between the lines that he would change his announced policy. So later on, of course, my story, my scoop, was widely covered in the front pages of the major Korean papers as well as through the Korean television news. And President Carter changed his mind, only withdrew several thousand American forces from the Korean peninsula and then stopped withdrawing anymore.
자, 다른 학생 없나요? 잠깐만요. 손을 들어서. 저쪽에 잠깐만. 이쪽 학생하고 그 다음에 하겠습니다. 그쪽 김현지 선생님 먼저 하고 그 다음에 하겠습니다. 일어서서 이름 말씀해 주시고 가십시오.
Well, my name is Chun Jung-min, and I have one question for you. Will you donate your organs to other people when you die?
Well, yeah, I think that's a great idea. To be helpful, and even after you die, you're helpful. That's wonderful. She was saying that right after you die, you're going to donate your organs.
Well, I am a student of Christian Science. Are there anybody who knows about Christian Science? You know, in Christian, you might have heard about the Christian Science Monitor, the quality paper, one of the best quality paper in the world. So in Christian Science, we believe in eternal life. So many of my friends already signed a document to give their own, human organs. But I didn't sign that document yet, because I believe in eternal life. So the physical life would have the ending, but the spiritual life, we will have the eternal one. And I don't want to tell you the teachings of Christian Science at this moment, but what I believe is that eternal life.
And you don't want to mess up any transfer of your soul somewhere, right? Greater.
자, 다음 학생 있으십니까? 예. 한국 김영찬. 이름 말씀해 주시기 바랍니다.
My name is Chan Hye-jin, and I'm in the second grade at Sadebuseol Middle School. And I have a question. What values do you think do the journalists have to have when they write their articles?
What credentials they should have?
Values.
Value? Or what values they should have? Okay. What standards they should have?
Well, as I indicated in my remarks, first of all, you have to have the justice in your heart. So to fight for justice in our society, in our government, and against the wrongdoing politicians in particular. So the first thing I would like to mention as value to become a journalist, I can say the justice, your mind of your thinking of justice. So if you have the feel justice in your heart to correct any wrongdoing in this society, in the political world, then you have to have the strong will of carrying out justice in every sector of our society.
My name is Myung-cho Kim. I'm in second grade. I'm second grade in Daejeon Middle School, and I want to talk about the internet news. That the media has been changed many times, and many people use internet to see news. So, and I want to say that do you think is it a proper way to see news and internet, and how can it be developed in future? Because it isn't as good as the newspapers.
Let me clarify. The question was, many people nowadays watch or be notified of the news through the internet. And first, it's a two-part question. So first of all, is internet a reliable source of news? And second, if so, or whether it is or not, how can it be developed further to become the source of information?
There are so many internet news media in our society now. And the most controversial thing is they spread unfounded stories, even some ideas invented by from their own mind. So Jerry and I served for the journalism in a traditional sense, and also very firmly grounded news articles we wrote. But these days, the youngsters do not read the major newspapers. That's a big problem, I think. You have to learn something about the society, about the international world, as well as all sectors of all fields of sciences through print media. But most of you, only read the internet. So the unfounded, grounded stories sometimes. Most of the time, I can say. But since the world is changing so fast, nobody can predict what kind of means to deliver news would emerge in our days to come, in the years to come. So now we have diversified means of delivering news, even today in Korea. The only problem is how to educate
What was the most
people who are involved in internet news media to be responsible and to be honest in giving their own stories or ideas, even ideas. It is very, very controversial and also very, very important. Now,
Yeah, my name is Jo Young-taek and I'm now entering Seoul National University, and my question is that what was the most important factor in building your own business, YTN? I mean, not from the not as a journalist, but as an entrepreneur.
well, you know, the news agency is a 24-hour business. So when I became the president publisher CEO of Yonhap News Agency, I tried to find every possible way to meet the ends, to make the ends meet in financial field of Yonhap News, because news agency does not run any advertisement. So it is really difficult to manage a news agency. So at the time of my presidency, the then government announced a new policy to establish the 24-hour cable news. So I thought this is a great occasion for a news agency man to get involved. And I sent my task force to other countries to survey how to make Yonhap News Agency survive and develop in the future. So the best idea was two. One, we have to develop a economic and financial digital news service. That was the Infomax Now. And the other one was the 24-hour television news like America's CNN. So the nature of the 24-hour television news and news agency are very similar. So that's why I persuaded my Yonhap News Agency people to not to expect any pay increase, because we have to accumulate the funds to establish the Yonhap television news. So for 2 years, my young fellows, were very patient not to ask me any more pay increase. So I could found the Yonhap News Agency, Yonhap Television News. Now they call Your True Television, but originally it was Yonhap Television News, YTN. So this is the how I could establish the Yonhap Television News. So in the management side, it was very difficult to ask advertisement from big businesses. So I went to exaggerate a little bit, to see all of the Korean business conglomerate, chairman of the Korean business conglomerate. And at the time, only viewer family was about 7,000 in the whole country. And of course, these days it's a different story. But those, several of the chairmen of the big business conglomerates cooperated with me under one condition, that when YTN prospers, you just stop increasing. I mean, increasing the advertisement charge. So I said, okay, I will keep that promise with me. So that's why I could make Yonhap Television News to start rather, safely, I can say. So in the as an entrepreneur for news business, I am very, very happy. I founded the Yenup Television News, which every family around the country enjoys these days. So Yenup's, the YTN's financial situation now is in black. So that's why, not only as a journalist, but also as a news entrepreneur, I am very, very happy to have founded YTN.
And everybody understand the word black? He says it's in the black, it's making money. Okay?
자, 시간 관계상 질문은 여기까지 하도록 하겠습니다. Thank you very much. 박수 많이 주세요.
Like TV